Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the one and only Hosting Cruz, bringing you another exciting edition of boxing. Don't forget to hit and to like, subscribe to my channel. It's always greatly appreciated. Stay tuned. Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Hosting Cruz. And guys, I'm here to talk about, just give my final take on the July 19th pay-per-view showdown between the legendary and the returning, one of the greatest fighters of all time, man. One of the greatest, man, just one of the greatest fighters ever to put on a pair of gloves. The legend Manny Pacquiao, the former, man, the 8th division, the only 8th division world champion. Such a, not only a great person, man, but a great fighter. All around great human being. And July 19th, after 4 years of not fighting, he's back in the big, on the big stage. You know, it's going to be a solid pay-per-view on hand. You got Angel Fierro versus Pitbull Cruz in a rematch. You got Brandon Figueroa on there against Joet Gonzalez in what should be a tremendous fight between two Mexican warriors going at it, just like Pitbull and Fierro, two Mexican warriors. Both those fights have Fight of the Year written on it. And then you got the co-main event between, well, it's a rematch. Another rematch between Sebastian the Towering Inferno Fundora versus Tim Tszyu in what was one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen in boxing. And it was my pick for Fight of the Year last year. Now, Pacquiao versus Barrios is the main event, obviously. And this is my final thoughts on this, man. I mean, we are a little over a month away from the fight. July 19th. We're on June 4th coming in. We're on June 3rd right now. Today was a press conference. You know, both guys sized each other up. They did the face-off, and of course, Manny Pacquiao, the much shorter fighter in this fight. And Pacquiao doesn't have, this is nothing new to Pacquiao. Pacquiao has fought bigger men in his career. Most of the time, he's a smaller fighter. And if you look at his career, like many of us have, he's had many success with taller fighters. Like, some of his best performances were against fighters taller than him. Oscar De La Hoya, Antonio Margarito. Coming into that Margarito fight, people were concerned for Pacquiao. Like, Pacquiao may be biting off more than he can chew because he's climbing up in weight. He's fighting a much bigger guy in Margarito. Margarito may go in there and swarm him with body punches and pressure and just wear him down. But Pacquiao went in there and gave Margarito the worst beating of his career, and probably one of the worst beatings you'll ever see in a fight. So Pacquiao is fighting, like Margarito, like De La Hoya, a tall fighter in Mario Barrios. Now people are coming in and saying that Mario Barrios is the least dangerous champion, the weakest link out of all the champions. Brian Oman Jr., Jerome Boots Ennis, Raleigh Romero. And then you got Barrios. But Barrios, he's a good fighter. You know, he drew with Abel Ramos, Jesus Ramos' brother. He fought Keith Thurman. He fought Gervonta Tank David. So he's been in there with some good fighters. And he also defeated Yordenis Ugas, who was the last man to fight Manny Pacquiao 4 years ago. He outboxed and dropped Ugas. Ugas was coming in with eye injury, so yeah, it is what it is. But it happened. Barrios won the fight fair and square. So now Barrios is fighting a guy that Ugas is fighting a man that Ugas beat. And this is where styles make fights. Boxing is so funny. Barrios could go in there and beat Ugas, and then here comes Pacquiao. He just might have a chance of beating Barrios. The only question that I have is, how will he look in there at 46? I mean, Pacquiao hasn't fought in 4 years. He's 46 years old. And I've said this on my past video about this fight. I spoke about this fight already, that this fight, Pacquiao is just proving something to himself. He's not proving anything to any of us because he has nothing to do. He has nothing to prove to us anymore. He's already going into the Hall of Fame this year. He is, like I said, one of the greatest to ever do it. He's had a career of wars, not like Mayweather. I mean, Mayweather had some rumbles before he was money made. When he was Pretty Boy Floyd, Floyd was coming forward and taking it to fighters and standing right in the pocket. But Pacquiao, most of his career was like that. There was no defense changing style. No, Pacquiao was straight into the fire, balls to the walls. You hit him, he pounds his gloves, and he's like, "You got me, I'm gonna get you back." And this is the Pacquiao that we're gonna get. The question is, at 46, how would that gas tank look? Because Pacquiao kind of faded against Ugas. He was not able to close the fight strong, and he lost by unanimous decision. 4 years now. This is not, no, that's 4 years ago. This is 4 years later. Pacquiao is now 4 years older. Now Pacquiao is also trying to break his record of the oldest welterweight champion of the world. He did that in 2019 when he defeated Keith Thurman in a fight that many were counting him out. Actually, just like how they're counting him out right now. Because he was coming into that fight at 40 years old. And that's that. They were looking at the number 40. And Keith Thurman at the time was undefeated. The younger, stronger fighter. Hard puncher. And in the first round, I'll never forget it. Will never forget it, is when he dropped Keith Thurman in the first round. Did not waste any time. After that, of course, Keith Thurman got warmed up and the fight got really competitive. So it was not an easy fight. Pacquiao won it by split decision. Became the oldest welterweight champion of the world. Not an easy fight. But then he lost to Ugas. The thing is, what will he look like in there at 46? He had an exhibition against this Japanese kickboxer. And it was an exhibition. It was not a real fight. It was not on Pacquiao's record, nothing. So there's no real winners in there. But they were going at it. And Pacquiao had his moments. He was landing some good shots and this and there. But if you look at Pacquiao's body, they want to talk about, oh, Pacquiao didn't look all that good. It was an exhibition. Pacquiao was not in shape. He did not really train. I don't think he trained as hard as he normally does. Like if he's getting ready for a real fight. If you look at his body physically, it was not the best. But he went in there and he hanged on. He did not get dropped or knocked out or anything or hurt. And he held his own against a bigger, younger, stronger fighter. Now, this time, Pacquiao is getting ready for war for real. He's putting in 8 weeks of training. He's doing what has gotten him to 8 division world champ titles, and he's doing what has gotten him to what he is today, one of the greatest to ever do it. Hall of Famer coming in. And that is a full-on training camp. 8 weeks. He's running the miles, 8 miles, going to the gym, doing the gym work, the sparring, under the tutelage of the legendary trainer Freddie Roach. One of the greatest duos in the history of the sport of boxing, Freddie Roach and Manny Pacquiao. It's good to see those two back in the gym. And that's, it's good to see that, the nostalgia of this, But my concern is at 46 years old. Father Time is undefeated. Boxing is a young man's sport. They always say it for a reason. It's a brutal sport. It's nothing to play with. But in the past, we've seen fighters at Pacquiao's age compete at the highest level. Bernard Hopkins at 46, he won the light heavyweight title at 46 years old against Jean Pascal. George Foreman knocked out Michael Moore at 45 years old to win the heavyweight title once again. Now, the difference between Pacquiao and these two fighters, Hopkins and George, is that these two, George and Hopkins, were active. They were not retired 4 years out, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. They were active. They were fighting, and they worked their way to their title fights at their advanced age. Pacquiao hasn't fought in 4 years. And at 46, like Hopkins and, you could say George. George fought until 49 years old at the highest level. Yeah, that's the difference. Pacquiao, these two guys have been fighting. Those two guys were fighting, and Pacquiao hasn't been fighting in 4 years. So the thing is it 4 years of rest, or is 4 years of a disaster, of a mistake coming into this fight? Will it backfire on Pacquiao and bite him in his ass? Because it may just be that. Barrios, many say he's no world beater. He's not a Jerron Boots Ennis. I don't think. Yeah, he's not dangerous like an Ennis or Brian Norman Jr. But he's no slouch either. He's a good fighter. He's long. He's tall. Decent power. And he's a warrior. A very durable fighter. If Pacquiao is gonna do what he can, man. At 46, ain't much else you can do. He's at 46. He's not getting any younger. Under the tutelage of Roach. Roach is going to do everything possible to make sure Manny's ready for this fight. Even at 46, Pacquiao is going to be, like I said, he's going to be doing the running. He's going to be doing his 8 to 9 miles of run. 8 weeks of training camp, hard sparring. One thing about Freddie Roach gym is hard sparring over there. Manny's going to definitely come in shape and go in there and try to do what no one is expecting him to do, and that is to win a world title at 46 years old against a guy in his prime who is, 20 years younger than Pacquiao? Barrios, almost 20 years. Is a big age gap. Barrios is 29, 30 the most, and Pacquiao 46. That's a long time. It's a big gap. So yeah, man, as a big fan of Manny Pacquiao, who isn't a big fan of Manny Pacquiao, how I feel about this is, I'm a big fan of Pacquiao. I'd love to see the nostalgia. Like I said, him and Roach. It's always great to see Pacquiao back in the sport. When Pacquiao fights, everyone watches. It's a big event. It's an extravaganza. It's a spectacle. And on July 19th, that's what we're going to see. But 46 years old, that's the thing. What's going to happen when that bell ring and the longer the fight goes? Will Pacquiao still have the fire in his belly? Will that, and if a slight version of a vintage of Manny Pacquiao from the past comes in this fight, he just may have what it takes to pull this off. Because, like I said, Pacquiao has a history of fighting taller fighters and having massive success against them. And Pacquiao, if he looks a bit of himself, he can be Barrios. Because Barrios is flat-footed. He's not the fastest fighter. He's not the hardest puncher. Yes, he's durable. He can fight. He have decent boxing skills and stuff. But Pacquiao is faster. He's still fast at 46. I don't know if you guys seen the clips of him shadowboxing and working in the gym. Now they say you always look good in the gym until the fight happens. You start to see the age in the fight. But honestly, just training says a lot, man. You find out about yourself in training. There's a lot of fighters that retire before the fight happens. You know, fighters have pulled out during training camp. Like, nah, man, I can't handle this anymore. It has happened. Sugar Ray Leonard, after his fight with Macho Camacho, he said he was done, and then he was actually planning a comeback. He went to the gym. He trained. I read this somewhere, and I think it was running. To get up and run, he said, "Nah, I'm done. I'm done with this." So trainings will tell you a lot. Will tell your body enough, or you can keep going. So they can say all they want. The training is nothing, and then, because in the fight they're gonna show their age. No, no, no. Training to get through the full training camp says a lot. And I know Pacquiao. If once Pacquiao can get, and he will get through this training camp, no problem, get in tremendous shape, he can fight. He can fight. He will definitely perform. At 46, who knows what we're gonna see? We expect a good competitive fight. In the early going, Pacquiao is gonna be himself. But what happens when we're in the 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, 11th, 12th, where it matters? When it's time to bite on the mouthpiece, and bodies are still there, and is deep in there, and in deep waters. Where Pacquiao hasn't been in 4 years, and now 46. When it gets tough, can Pacquiao pull the trigger and just be the Pacquiao of old? Like I said, if we see a slight bit of Pacquiao of old, he has that will be enough to beat Barrios. Just like De La Hoya, just like Margarito, he has what it takes to get the job done. I can see Pacquiao peppering Barrios to the head and body like he did Oscar, like he did Margarito, because Barrios will be there he will be open to shots. He will be there. He ain't running, and yeah, it's a styles make fights, man, and it's a fight that's tailor made for Pacquiao. The question is, if Pacquiao gasses out and gets tired, then that's not a good thing, and then Barrios gonna pick him to pieces. But yeah, man, that's my take. I just hope that Manny doesn't get hurt. He comes in the best shape possible, which I know he will, under the guidance of Freddie Roach, like always. Pacquiao's a legend. He's a professional. He's the greatest to ever do it, or one of. And he's gonna go in there prepared, man, and he's gonna go in there and try to do the unthinkable, man. Break his own record and prove us wrong, man. Age is just a number. I mean, we've seen it before, but for Pacquiao, like I say, he's trying to break his own record. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this fight between Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios, ladies and gentlemen, July 19th in Vegas, as the legend returns at 46 years old to take on a man over 10 years younger than him, in Mario Barrios, who's the WBC welterweight champion of the world. And even Barrios said it, like, Manny's a legend, huge respect for what he did, but he's in there, and I gotta put my hands on him. I gotta hurt him, and that's the fight game. It is what it is. Pacquiao signed the contract, and now it's two men in there, guys. So it is what it is. Miracle Boy Boxing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Jose Cruz. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And it is always a pleasure to talk to you guys about boxing. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.